I was like, oh, okay, fight. Hello and welcome to Rhythm Encounter. This is episode 1 of our Music of the Year 2016 extravaganza. As our listeners are probably well aware, we have several episodes of awesome 2016 music to share with you. 3, in fact, and this is our very first one. So let's the awesome music fest begin. I'm your host, Caitlin Argyros. Link is on the boards. Joining me for our first episode are Peter Triezenberg.
Hi, Peter Triezenberg. I have Fury on the boards, and I'm really happy to be here. We're so fun.
And Robert Fenner.
Hello, long-time listener, first-time guest. Thank you for having me, Caitlin.
And thank both of you guys for joining us. It's one of the best things about Music of the Year is getting to hang out with friends both on the site and off the site and sharing in our love of awesome music from the year. So let's get right into it with our first block. Peter, you have our first pick.
Yep. My first pick is Give Me from Tokyo Mirage Sessions, Sharp Fire Emblem. That's a Sharp, not a hashtag. Everyone Get it right.
Very important. It's about music, people.
And in a game about music, when you would expect it to have a really good soundtrack, and this is one of my favorite tracks from the game. So hope you enjoy.
And then Robert, you have the next pick.
Okay, well my first pick is the track Epiphany Fields from Oxenfree, a spooky little cosmic horror adventure with a spooky little soundtrack. I have picked what I think is probably the most upbeat piece from the soundtrack. It's got this, it's got this smooth kind of spooky synth, but with a sort of happier key to it, and it's got this ascending arpeggio that reminds me of October Love Song by Chris and Cozy, which is one of my favorite songs, so I hope you enjoy it.
All right, well, let's listen to Give Me from Tokyo Mirage Sessions and Epiphany Fields from Oxenfree.
どんな理由でも裏切られて傷ついても Always, always 正直さを光と影正反対な私と違うあなたが知りたい Give me 結果のように Give me 太陽のように Give me もっと違う輝きが欲しくなる Give me その秘密 Give me こじ開けて Give me 手に入れたい何もかも欲しくなるほら早く Please give it to me私と違うあなた ラボギミ不器用さもギミ私にない輝きが欲しくなる今すぐに Please give it to me Please give it to me Please give it to me
So Tokyo Mirage Sessions is really heavily mired in the Japanese pop music business. Its characters are all like aspiring musicians, or they have like some sort of they're already members of the industry. They all have aspirations and goals and something they want to get out of the business. And one of the neat things about this is that throughout the game, whenever a character will write a new song or make a big new step in their career, it'll usually be accompanied by a little anime cutscene, where they showing them in concert playing the song. Usually these moments act as kind of a little punctuating moments to a character arc that they've been going through. What I like about Give Me in particular is that it's where Tsubasa and Kiria perform together. Tsubasa is the main heroine who's kind of she's breaking into the business, and she really looks up to Kiria, who's this like big star. So them kind of being on equal footing, and the song is about what they can learn from each other. I just really like that. Like it works from their characters. It's kind of cute seeing them like play off each other, and this is also one of my favorite special attacks in the game because the best part about these songs too is that they also play whenever a character gets their little I think they're called duo arts. And so you'll be hearing a lot of these songs quite often whenever a character gets one of their special attacks, and they're super flashy, anime nonsense, and it's awesome. And yeah, what did you guys think?
I'm so happy you picked this because this and Reincarnation are my favorite of the vocal tracks from Tokyo Mirage Sessions, and this track is so much fun. It's undeniably catchy, and even if you don't know a single word in Japanese, the lyrics are a lot of fun. It's especially because of how they handle the duet between Kiria and Tsubasa. They're sort of trading off different parts of the song. So one of them will have the verse, and then the other will have the bridge, and then they swap even in the refrain when they're singing the chorus. They're kind of trading off and then singing together, and it's just a whole lot of fun. And I love the shortened version that they show in the game when they're actually in concert. That's just a really cute, fun duet for them to have. And I mean, exactly what you were saying. It's nice to have this duet in particular because Kiria is something of a mentor to Tsubasa, who, like you said, breaks into the industry. She starts off really unsure of herself, but she finds her footing and she finds her voice, and this is nice to have this be sort of an achievement of hers, to have her working with her mentor and pulling off this kind of a song together. And oh man, I love I wish they weren't super random. It'd be nice if I could trigger this whenever I wanted to in battle, because I think the duo arts always, it's a little chunk of the song where they're singing in the background and pulling off a flashy attack. And this one is actually kind of it's a nice long stretch. It's like the entirety of the refrain, I think, and that was kind of the best part of the song. So I'm super happy about that. But it's just good stuff. I know J-pop isn't always everyone's cup of tea, and some people may get turned off by it, but this is some really good music. Atlas, kind of pulled all the stops by having Avex come in and actually do all the music, and you get some catchy stuff like this. So I would not say no to more if they were so inclined.
I wouldn't either. I wasn't expecting to like it nearly as much as I did, but it turned out really well. Robert, what do you think?
Well, I think I'm the odd one out in the room, and I'll just say quickly that I'm not a big fan of what Avex does. That said, I think this is one of the stronger songs on the soundtrack. It's, as you guys said it really well. It's a very cute and fun moment when this song plays, and it's very upbeat and poppy and well put together. And I've got a soft spot for Kiria. She's like this ice queen with the heart of gold. So any musical numbers with her in it, I was pretty happy with, I gotta say.
Well, they're like at the end, they're dancing on top of like the giant. I forget what his name is, but the character that Kiria has a plush of that she loves so very much.
Yeah, I forgot about that guy.
Yeah,
So
I thought that was adorable.
It kind of brings both their character arcs to a close.
Yeah,
because like Tsubasa goes from like I can't even be in the same room as Kiria to we're on stage together, and Kiria kind of opens up and has the kind of lets herself be a mentor figure.
Yeah.
Yes, it's good stuff.
Yeah, it's very sweet.
So let's move on and talk about your pick, Robert. This is very, I don't know. I wasn't expecting this off top, just from, I haven't played Oxenfree, but looking at images of the game and whatnot, I wasn't quite expecting something so very heavily electronica and kind of almost psychedelic a little bit.
Yeah, I could see that. Epiphany Fields really is kind of the odd one out of this soundtrack. It's by this artist called Scientific, but without any of the vowels. So imagine that, if you will, when you're going to search for him. But like most of the soundtrack is this they're kind of like more experimental soundscapes than they are, than you would consider them to be songs or pieces of music. But when Oxenfree opens and Alex and her teen friends have arrived on Edward's Island to have their end-of-year party, Epiphany Fields is the track that plays when they're getting off the boat, and before anything spooky happens, they're all just, they're going to have a fun time. And it's got this otherworldly weirdness about it, but it's undeniably it's got sort of, it's in kind of a happier key,
Mm-hmm.
But I really like this piece so much. It reminded me a great deal of some 80s experimental synth artists that I have a lot of fondness for. And it was quite surprising to hear that type of music in an indie game of 2016. So it was a real treat to my ears.
I'm glad you gave me the context for it, Robert, because one of the things I was going to say it reminded me of was that it was like the beginning of a horror movie.
Yeah.
But
that's exactly what it
but in
is.
the sense. Yeah, but in the sense you say, like, they're getting off the boat, they're going to have a good time. This song sounds like kind of that, like, kind of synthetic, upbeat, peppy music that you'd find at the beginning of an indie film.
Yeah.
Like, almost kind of like the soundtrack to Scott Pilgrim, honestly. That was the first thing that came to mind.
Or, like, Disaster Piece's soundtrack for It Follows, if you've seen that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's a good comparison, yeah. So, like... And yeah, so like knowing what comes later sort of colors like this is the impression of the song, but it does kind of have that kind of creepy synth buildup, and then suddenly turns into this kind of like Linkin Park going through their EDM phase beat that I really enjoyed. I was like nodding my head and like dancing along to it if you will. Cool. So I really enjoyed it.
Well, I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, I really found the layering of the different synths to be a really cool experience. There's just a lot of fullness to having all these different sounds coming at you at once, and it's a neat effect that they pull off with you've got reverb with the vocal synths. There's that sort of pulsing bass and other synths that come in and out. It's just a really interesting piece, and it's not the kind of piece of music that I would necessarily be listening to on my own, which is another reason why I love doing this show, is getting introduced to music I wouldn't necessarily have found on my own. So thank you.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
Well, let's keep that going and see if we can find some more cool new music to listen to in our second block. Robert, you've got the first pick.
Okay. My pick this block is the song Furuya by Masafumi Takada from the remaster of The Silver Case.
And then, Peter, what is your pick for the block?
My pick for this block is Forever Flame by Miracle of Sound, which is a rock tribute to Dark Souls 3.
All right, well, let's rock out to Furuya from The Silver Case and Forever Flame by Miracle of Sound, a tribute to Dark Souls 3. So, Robert, I need you to tell me a little bit about this piece. It reminded me of some things that I'll talk about just in just a little bit from other games, and I'm wondering how kind of accurate my sense was about where this plays or what the context is for this track based on just listening to it. So, tell us about Furuya.
It's definitely a striking piece, and I look forward to hearing what it reminded you of. To give some context, each case in the Silver Case, like each chapter is like a case of the week where you're looking into a different heinous crime that's happened. And one of these chapters centers around the character of Furuya, who he's... How would I describe him? He's kind of like a 4chan troll. And he spends all night on these chat rooms just like threatening people and calling them idiots and getting into fights. And each sequence with him is preceded with his mother going off to her night shift and saying, "Oh, there's some food here for you, so be sure to eat," and him just, spending time fighting with people online. And so this piece is punctuated and uses this sort of ticking clock as the percussion. So like him just whiling away the hours, having this doing these toxic actions online, and it's this very foreboding piece. I think it sums up his character and his actions very well.
That is so totally not the image I had in my head.
Tell me your take.
Well, my take was that the style and the synths reminded me of a little bit of Parasite Eve. They're kind of a little grungy, sorry.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I was thinking, this sounds like it could be like Precinct music, because I know that the main character is, he's part of a crime unit. And I was like, okay, this could be like he's at the precinct, he's at his desk or whatever. It just kind of reminded me a little bit of that.
Somebody's definitely at a desk. But
that is not at all what I would have expected. But now knowing the context, the repetitiveness of it makes a lot of sense. I mean, I wrote down it's kind of repetitive, but knowing now where it plays, that makes total sense, and that actually kind of works really well.
I'm glad you thought so. I actually thought about including the Precinct music, which is it's a much seedier and sleazier piece. But I think that's on my list, which will be up at some point on the site.
Yes, our Music of the Year written feature, which you can check out as you're listening. I believe we should probably. Yeah. Peter, what's your take on this?
So whenever I hear a ticking clock motif, the first thing that comes to mind immediately is kind of your stereotypical Hollywood, third act scenario where we're running against the clock, or the bomb's going to go off any second now, and the camera keeps cutting back to a digital timer, and even though I'm pretty sure explosives don't actually work that way, but whatever. But with this song, now that you've given me the context for how it's like hours being whittled away, and that this guy is kind of an internet troll, I think that lends some interesting context, because my thought was that it sounds like something disastrous is like seconds away from happening, and it's like cacophonous. This is brief, repeated instances of chaos. The way the music is just kind of structured, for how brief it is, there's a lot going on. And so now I'm putting it into the context of, okay, so this is someone who's like getting into fights and arguments, and might, knowing that this is a Suda51 game, might snap and do something horrible.
You're right on there. Yeah.
I think it definitely fits, and it's an intriguing piece. I like how I like character motifs that can kind of be used to neatly sum up the character in question. So good show.
Cool. I'm glad it had that effect.
Well, I don't have a good segue, but I don't know that we need a good segue to talk about this awesome rock song that you picked, Peter.
Yeah, I've picked Miracle of Sound stuff before on the show, so I won't spend too much time introducing the guy, but he's from Ireland, used to work for The Escapist, does these really cool tributes to popular games. And he released 2 Dark Souls songs this year. This one, Forever Flame, and one called Fire's Fade, which is a lot more symphonic and has a female co-singer. But both excellent songs. I kind of lean more towards this one because it just kind of sounds like the stuff I listen to normally. It's kind of slower, more downbeat, but it's just got a really I like the lyrics. I think it's a really he's got such a great sense of just making a kind of power metal type music, and that really fits Dark Souls is this aesthetic, like, because Dark Souls doesn't have a lot of like, it has battle music, and it has like your super ambient, soulful title music, and all that stuff. But I feel like if you took Dark Souls aesthetically, you could easily make a rock album out of it. So I just find this to be weirdly suitable.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, probably one of my favorite tracks that I've listened to all year. I was trying, with all the great game soundtracks that were coming out in the latter span of the year, I kept trying to keep this one in my memory. Like, no, I have to bring this up at Music of the Year. It has to get on there. Don't forget.
Peter, have you ever listened to Ulver?
So what?
A group called Ulver.
I have not. No.
They're a Norwegian sort of experimental metal group. They I think one of their best albums, they did this. They did like this like sort of black metal opera of William Blake's The Marriage of Heaven and Hell, and this Forever Flame piece in particular reminds me a lot of that album. So I thought,
oh, nice.
Yeah,
I love to check that out.
Yeah,
definitely.
Well, this kind of style isn't really my thing. We've discussed my music taste before, I think. But I'm always, whenever I hear Miracle Sound, I'm always impressed by how many different kinds of sounds he's miraculously able to pay tribute with the music. In different, we've got Dark Souls. Last year, I think you picked a piece for Witcher 3.
Yeah.
So and he's done stuff obviously for stuff like Mass Effect. He's all these different kind of styles, and they're all both original compositions, but they also really fit the soundscape and the imagery of the games that they come from. And this one is no different. It's definitely, it's a gothic rock song. It's got a dark feel to it, both the pounding music but also the lyrics, which are, I opened this up on YouTube so I could find lyrics because I really wanted to listen to the lyricism. Another thing that Miracle Sound is really good at is writing really good fitting lyrics for whatever piece that they're doing or he's doing. I think this thing that's interesting to me is the accompaniment is definitely hard rocking, but the vocals don't go into that sort of heavy rock or punk territory that you might expect. Like he's not screaming or scratching his voice. He's not. Arr, arr. It's still kind of soft and smooth, but still powerful and impactful, and that's a nice kind of juxtaposition. And there's this really cool thing that seems to be going on where you can hear his voice, but then there's also an octave below. I'm assuming it's just him singing below, or maybe there's some sort of a computer effect going to there.
I think he probably has. He released like a series of videos like how he makes his songs, which is definitely worth checking out if anyone wants to visit his channel. But he puts like multiple layers of he'll record multiple layers of his own voice and multiple layers of music and put it on there. I think one of his songs had like 60 different like levels to it. Like,
wow,
there's a lot of audio mixing going on in here.
It's dedication.
That is dedication, yeah. And for stuff like this, that is a fan tribute to all of these different games. That's I'm beside myself. All I do is run a little podcast. But it's a podcast which has some good music on it, and every once in a while we get to feature artists like Miracle of Sound that are doing some awesome work paying tribute to and loving on some of our favorite video games. So we're going to keep going with our third and final block. Robert, you once again have our first pick.
Oh, well, thank you. My first pick is Simple Gratitude from I Am Setsuna.
The piano album that everyone loves to hear.
So
and yes. And then, Peter, you get the honor of the final pick, and I did intentionally make this one last because it's good. What is it?
It's good. It's also really long, but worth it. The final track that I picked is Hellfire from Final Fantasy 15.
I can't wait to talk about this one. So let's listen to Simple Gratitude from I Am Setsuna and Hellfire from Final Fantasy 15.
Simple gratitude. It's simply lovely. I've been waiting to use that. I Am Setsuna has, bar none, one of the best soundtracks that I've heard this year, and possibly one of my favorite JRPG soundtracks. Composer Tomoki Miyoshi, he's obviously taken some inspiration from the work that Masashi Hamauzu was doing on the Saga series. In particular, his work on Saga Frontier 2 and Unlimited Saga were both piano-driven, but had other instruments to complement it. Whereas Miyoshi's soundtrack for Setsuna just strips everything back to the bare minimum. One instrument, just the piano strings, nothing else, and it's a perfect complement to that game's snowy, melancholy feel. It even feels like maybe a little Eric Satie in places, but I think Simple Gratitude is definitely my favorite track off of that album. It's just got this lazy kind of swaying back and forth kind of feel to it when you're in this snowy town after nightfall. It's the perfect piece of music for that feel, in my opinion.
No, I agree. I wrote down that this would be the perfect accompaniment for like a gentle winter snow shower. Like you're just looking out the window and it's snowing gently outside. This would be good music to listen to. It kind of really does give off that feel. And it's a simple but beautiful melody. So Simple Gratitude is an appropriate name for it. But it's such a pretty melody, but still kind of somber. And the starkness of having just the piano kind of creates that sort of somber tone, along with like you mentioned, it's kind of drifting back and forth. It's not a waltz per se, but it is in 3/4 time, so it sort of has that sort of bum 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 feel to it, which is lazy's not the right word for it, but it sort of has that feel of just relaxed and going with it instead of hurrying or rushing. So
isn't Miyoshi like 23? I'm so jealous. What an achievement. I want to hear more from him.
I really hope that whole company gets another shot.
Oh, definitely.
Setsuna had so many good ideas, and the end result, it's not perfect, but it's still it's an admirable attempt, and I really want them to try again.
It had so many ideas that weren't its own, but I think its heart was in the right place.
Yeah, and if there's one area where it does come together, it's in the audiovisual cohesion of it all.
Yes.
And I'm with you that this is a perfect accompaniment. The only gripe I have with it, and I have the same problem with the game's level design. The two kind of are inseparable to me because they kind of get a little samey.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I love the fact that they committed to the ice and snow motif, and I love the fact that they committed to the piano, the all piano score. At the same time, it kind of blends together for me. I would be hard pressed to pick out an individual song from Setsuna's soundtrack. It's more kind of a general, this is nice. That's my reaction to it.
I get it. I'm very happy with the soundtrack. I think it was a very daring move to be as minimal as it was. And it sounds much more like, an arranged album that you would get rather than the actual backing music. So, but I can see how there may not be enough variety there. I definitely feel the same as you with the limited number of environments and dungeons that game had. But each time there was a new piece of music, I was personally quite excited to hear it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I haven't really listened to much of Setsuna's music on its own since I finished the game, so perhaps I'll have to give it another try one of these days.
It'd be interesting to compare reactions from people who experienced the music first through playing the game, and so getting both the piano music, but then also the kind of sameness of the landscape of ice and snow, getting that sort of double whammy versus someone who has just listened to the music and then goes to play the game or doesn't play the game at all and sees, to see if that's a different kind of reaction, maybe. I don't know. It's always interesting to me to think about how we listen to music and how the way in which we listen to music can sometimes change our opinions on that music. Sometimes, I mean, your first impression, you listen to a piece without context, and then you get that context, and it changes how you perceive that piece. Now, I know for me personally, there have been plenty of times where I've listened to a soundtrack without having played the game first, and I don't like it very much, and then I play the game, and it grows on me. But I wonder if that could also work the other way. Like, you play a game, and you listen to music, and you either like it or maybe you don't like it, but then you listen to it just on its own without the game, and that could be a whole new experience as well. I don't know. I don't know why I'm coming up with this idea, but I feel like maybe more so than some other games, even on other music that we've featured on just this very episode, that I Am Setsuna could be an interesting experiment in that avenue, just because of the design decisions for both the visual appearance of the game, but then the music as well, which is fairly distinct, for better or for worse, from a lot of other RPGs.
I think it stands alone rather well, and yeah, your opinion may change when it's separated from the monotony of seeing the same environments, and just taken on its own. It may, in fact, it may definitely take on a whole different context. I think that's a very interesting idea, Caitlin.
We should do a study or something. Because I haven't played the game, so I should listen to the music by itself and then see how I feel about it.
Although an editorial.
Yes.
Synesthesia.
I don't know how to segue again to this next track, and in that I guess the segue would be that this was also a very much an audio-visual experience with this track in-game. It stands on its own really well, but part of it was the act of fighting this boss, who it should be fairly obvious who we're talking about based on the track title. But before we go into it, it should be said this involves one of the last bosses in Final Fantasy 15. So if you are at all spoiler conscious, we're not going to be obviously discussing the details of the plot or whatnot like that. But if you're at all not wanting to hear about details of the end game of 15, please skip ahead a few minutes while we talk about Hellfire. So,
spoilers,
Peter,
it's Satan. Sorry.
That's a more accurate
is, right?
allegory. So, man, do I have a lot to say about this song.
Go for it.
Okay, so Ifrit is my favorite summon in the Final Fantasy series. Always has been. There's something about just summoning the giant fire demon from hell that appeals to me inherently. Like I don't know, the me that borrowed the Satanist Bible from his library as a kid. I don't know. It's just stuck there in my subconscious. But the fact that Ifrit plays even a nominally important role in 15's universe is enough for me to get excited. And I wish that role was explained a bit better in game, because the only real context that's given for him, other than he's one of the Astrals, known as the Infernian, is there's a bit of flavor text in the strategy guide, and the Ultimania guides just came out in Japan, so there's a little bit more that talk about an ancient civilization called Solheim, and Ifrit was of the 6 Astrals. He betrayed them, started a war that destroyed the nation of Solheim and created the Star Scourge. Like, none of this is mentioned in game, but it's super interesting, and it gives him, like Robert, you mentioned Satan. it's literally Paradise Lost, like almost to a T, Ifrit's role in the story. And the fact that he's depicted as being more humanoid, he kind of has this fall from grace vibe going on. And it's something I really love aesthetically, and I really wish and kind of hope that they will expand upon Ifrit's role in the story, because it deserves it. It's such an interesting concept.
From what you've said about the backstory they've added, this version of Ifrit actually sounds a lot like Surt, the double giant in Norse mythology.
That could be apt too, especially given the kind of the Norse, the Nordic.
Oh, Niflheim, of course.
Niflheim, Solheim, yeah, like that actually might fit in really well with that mythology. Could be another influence. As for the song itself, it reminds. I mentioned this before the show. It reminds me a lot of Howard Shore's contributions to Lord of the Rings, especially the Bridge of Khazad-dûm and Foundations of Stone. The tracks when they're making their way through Moria and Gandalf fights the Balrog. Again, appropriate, giant fire demon. But the tracks are, even to me, I'm listening to this and they're structured similarly. There is a undercurrent of male vocals, kind of repeatedly chanting, mixed in with these like soaring strings and sudden intense bursts of sound that just underscore how the drama of the situation, kind of almost like some kind of prayer to a dark god. But I especially love too is in the second half of the song, Shimomura's complete mastery of character motifs comes to play, and it suddenly starts into a remix of Apocalypsis Noctis, the track that plays during the other astral fights. So it creates a thematic connection between Ifrit and his brethren, which is also appropriate given something interesting that happens during the end of the fight that I'm not going to get into because it might constitute a spoiler.
Yeah. Although I dearly want to talk about that because that was such a cool part. But
I do too. I want more. Square Enix.
Suffice it to say, something really cool happens when the piano kicks in at the end of the track, and we're not going to say what, but it was a really cool ending to that track and to that battle. So you hit on a lot of the things that I really wanted to say. That happens in reverse a lot, so that is fine with me. I'm fine with being the you said everything I wanted to say, damn it, person this time around. But yeah, I think my favorite part is, the entire track is great from start to finish. There's the first half has just got that epic sound down pat, and it's a long chunk of the track that sort of constitutes that sort of the first half of the fight where things are just, you're whittling away at this giant fire demon, and you're not really making much of a dent in him. And then the second half, or the more like the last third, I guess, of the track, where things shift and you get that thematic reference to the other astrals, is where things are turning around. You're making your way. You're fighting them off. The bros are going to work. That kind of thing. It's a lot of good energy to it, and the thematic connection in particular was really cool because it's a rendition of the same thing that plays when you fight the other astrals in particular. But it's interesting because they all have variations of that theme. Apocalypsis Noctis is what plays when you fight Titan, but then there's a version that plays when you fight Leviathan, and that's actually there's two versions when you fight Leviathan.
Right.
There's Apocalypsis Aquarius, and then there's also Hadrian's Wrath, I believe.
Yeah.
Both of which reference that theme, and I like that between Apocalypsis Noctis and Hadrian's Wrath, and here in Hellfire we have three distinct renditions of that theme. It's not just the same track being played in the exact same way. And Hellfire, in some respects, is a very different rendition of that theme versus Apocalypsis Noctis and Hadrian's Wrath. But it's a really suitable, epic sort of finisher for that theme that's been playing throughout the game. And for it to be playing while you're fighting Ifrit, while you're on your way to finishing the game and winning, beating the evil, whatnot. It was a really good musical way, I think, to sort of conclude this story that's been going on throughout the game.
Final Fantasy 15 is in so many ways a band apart from the rest of the series, and I mean, I think that's really, really highlighted by this piece that is so vastly different than what you'd expect from, the boss music in a Final Fantasy game. And I think it kind of constitutes and highlights how the series, and how 15 in particular, has kind of stepped away from its genre trappings to, I don't know, become its own master and play by its own rules. I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine this track playing with any of the previous Final Fantasy final bosses.
It's almost more
even
Dark
though,
Souls.
Yes, that's an interest, and even not just the music, but even the encounter itself feels more like Dark Souls than other Final Fantasy. I mean, obviously it's an action combat, but still, sort of the massiveness of this astral and the hopelessness, at least at the beginning of the fight. I remember feeling like, am I really even making a dent in this guy? I feel like I'm just getting burned a lot. So,
and this is one of the things where, like, musically, like, so there have been Latin choruses in Final Fantasy games, like. And like tracks like One Winged Angel, even Dancing Mad had like a sort of like synth choir going on that was like meant to impart a sense of epicness. So like it's not like this song is unprecedented in the series, but this is like almost the extreme. Like this is like an epic dark fantasy type music, like something from Dark Souls, like you had mentioned.
Even in the case of the final fight against Sephiroth or Kefka, it's still, you're on one side, he's on the other side, you've got a menu. But here, it's a very tightly directed cinematic experience, both, in triplicate. The visual direction, the gameplay, and the sound all together makes this, it really feels like you're playing out a high-stakes end of fantasy movie battle, more so than any other Final Fantasy title, definitely.
Yeah, from a cinematic perspective, in terms of gameplay, 15 is in a lot of ways unmatched. The spectacle of this boss fight and where it takes place, which is probably fairly obvious, but I'm not going to say where exactly because spoilers again, but still. If there's one thing that it's not really a problem with this track per se, it's just an unfortunate reality of how the music and the game progresses. This is not the final boss theme. There is another boss theme after this, and while that one is really good, and I adore that one too, again because of its use of themes. It blends two distinct themes that are just an absolute perfect mix. It's a little bit subdued compared to the epicness of this track. And again, like, it's not a problem with this track per se. It's just kind of like, this kind of feels like the actual final boss music. Like if you were listening through the game, not having played the game itself, but listening to the music, you might be, it would be understood if you thought that this is the final boss music and then the actual final boss is something else. So, but the final boss music, Magna Insomnia, is also very good, and we didn't feature it, but I think consciously or unconsciously, that was because to talk about that piece would have involved character spoilers. Like, I don't know that how I'd be able to discuss it without discussing who you're fighting and stuff like that. And so let's avoid that can of worms. I so dearly want to talk about that character, but I'm not that cruel. We're not that spoiler insensitive. So we'll leave that be, I think.
Too soon. Regrettably.
Yeah. But one day.
One day.
Well, that does it for our first episode, our first movement, as we usually title them, of our Music of the Year extravaganza. We will, of course, have 2 more episodes with guests and host picks. So please look forward to that. I want to thank Peter and Robert, of course, for joining me today.
Oh, well, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, great. Always great to be here.
Yeah, well, it makes it something special. Like I said, it's the best part about Music of the Year is really kind of sharing what you really liked. It's one thing to just say, oh, this is everything I liked, but it's nice to hear what everyone else brings to the table. So we've done a lot of that today. We'll have 2 more episodes of that as well. As usual, please rate and review us on iTunes, subscribe using whatever program, app you use to listen to podcasts. Feel free to shoot us an email at music@rpgfan.com or chat with us on the boards. We love talking to our fans. And in true tradition, Music of the Year, or Rhythm Encounter Music of the Year tradition, we're going to have a couple of outro tracks. This year, we asked listeners to send in music that they themselves liked from the year. And we decided that we would have them sort of take the place of our usual surprise tracks at the end instead of peppering them through. So for this episode, we have a trio of tracks picked by one of our very passionate fans, Retta. Retta picked Corridor of Reveries from Trails of Cold Steel 2, New World Order from Grand Blue Fantasy, and The End of the Road Should Be Here from Fire Emblem Fates. So please enjoy listening to that as we conclude our first episode. Music of the Year, that is. Our first Music of the Year 2016 episode. We're not going back in time yet. Maybe one day.
Groundhog Day loop.
But as usual, thank you all for listening. Check back for future episodes, more Music of the Year goodness, and keep on being awesome and listening to awesome music.
You are the ocean's great wave. You are the ocean's great wave.
But the vocals don't go into that sort of heavy rock or punk territory that you might expect. Like he's not screaming or scratching his voice. He's not. "Arr, arr."